Today, Into Creative are delighted to be interviewing Hamish Hawk, one of Scotland's best musical creative talents at the moment, ahead of the release of his new album, Angel Numbers. So, Hamish, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me. No, yeah, it's a pleasure.
All right. So, your new album, Angel Numbers, is out 3rd of February. How are you feeling about getting the album and all the new songs out there?
I'm really, well, at this stage, I'm really excited. You go through quite a few different phases, I would say, of nerves, and yeah, you sort of feel the weight of expectation on your shoulders. But right here and now, I feel really great about it. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to sort of unleashing them, as it were. You sort of, after recording them, you spend an awful lot of time sort of poring over them again, and you listen to them so much, and you end up listening to yourself more than you listen to other music. You sort of pore over the mixes and then the masters. And so once they're released, you can, as I say, kind of unleash them, you can set them free, and then they're sort of none of your business from there on in. So I'm looking forward to that moment, and we've been working really hard on them. And I think I can speak confidently for the whole band. I think we're really pleased with how they've turned out.
I guess there'll be such a small number of people will hear them initially
Yeah.
as they go through I guess, that embryonic period through to completing them, and then it's woof out to the public, and it must be quite strange at times just thinking about that journey each song's been on.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it before, but it bears repeating. You know, as much as I do listen to my own music a lot in those stages after recording and then sort of seeing what bits you can change around or reconfigure in some sense, you still don't, you still have some difficulty really understanding what the song sounds like or what the album sounds like, because if we're listening to it as a band, every individual member of the band will, they'll be focusing on their part first and foremost, trying to work out whether they fluffed any notes or made any mistakes. And then you just it's almost as if, if you were involved in the writing process, you have a completely different relationship with the song than someone who's just hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most interesting, but sort of, in a way, sort of difficult parts of the whole process is that you really don't have any proper reference point for what the songs sound like. And yeah, when you first release them, I think it's the first time where you really come to know, oh, especially when comparisons come in and people start saying, oh, this part reminded me of this, and part evoked this, and so on and so forth. It's difficult. It's difficult, sort of spending a lot of time in that place where you you really don't know at all what to expect. And as you say, it's exactly that. The songs take a real journey from when they're first written through various drafts and redrafts and edits and re-edits, and then the initial demos, the initial mixes, and the masters. And this can take a huge amount of time. So there's always a sense of achievement, but a sense of relief when a song is finally let out into the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just in terms of I believe some of the, if not all of them, but quite a lot of the songs were written during lockdown. I'm just wondering about the writing process and what impact that may have had during, when you're initially writing the songs down and coming up with the lyrics. What was that like?
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would say the bulk of the songs, though, I think all of the songs were written in lockdown, and it's a funny thing because our previous record, Heavy Elevator, one of the take homes that a lot of people had from that record was that, oh, it seemed to really hit the nail on the head in terms of that lockdown angst, But it was actually recorded long before that and long before the world went topsy turvy for a while. Um, and so Angel Numbers was written sort of slap bang in the middle of that. And it's, I suppose it's interesting in that I would be the first person to doubt that I would be feeling in any way creative or inspired, you know, amidst that sort of that panic and anxiety that came with the pandemic and all of us being locked down in our homes for an extended period of time. I was doubtful whether I would feel inspired. But after the dust settled and after I'd had some time just to take it all in, then I found myself feeling surprisingly inspired and surprisingly sort of yeah, ready to take on a new batch of songs or a new project. And Andrew Pearson, my guitarist and principal collaborator, he felt exactly the same. And so there was a period where we were sharing demos pretty much every day, and I was sending them back with words over the top of them. And yeah, that was a purple patch that lasted a few weeks. So Angel Numbers, as I say, was the product of that time, but it was just as much as a surprise to me as it might be to anyone else, you know.
Yeah, and I think that really chimes because I've read and spoken to some other musicians, and it was actually the view that it's quite a fertile period for the creativity. So,
Yeah.
And I think certainly for me on the outside looking in, I was actually quite surprised about that. But what you're saying is actually, pretty consistent from what I've seen elsewhere, which is
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly no shortage of. I mean, I've seen it too. No shortage of lockdown projects or lockdown albums, and
yeah,
where a few people seem to get into, sourdough or collages. I was trying to make a new record, but it's. I don't tend to write under that kind of I don't know. I don't tend to write well when I'm nervous about something or preoccupied. But as I say, once the dust had settled, there really was a fair few hours in the day, and I'm not as much as I'm quite good at sitting idle from time to time. I also, after a while, get quite fidgety, and I'm the sort of person that doesn't sit well with my own sedentary nature. I try and sort of shock myself out of it and
yeah.
leap out the armchair whenever I can. So lockdown was an opportunity for me to shake myself off and start something new.
Mm. And just thinking about the lyrics, I mean, it strikes me your lyrics are, they're very observant. There's wit in there. There's imagery. What, where do you find your principal influences for your lyrics?
In terms of other songwriters, or in terms
Well, yes, just a bit of both actually. So who do you look who's influenced you in terms of your I guess your career, but also just in terms of if you're thinking about a hook, where do the lyrics come from?
yeah. Well, it's a good question because it's a mixed bag. First and foremost, I would say that when it comes to other songwriters or listening to music generally, I am an avid listener of lyrics, and I have been ever since I was a child. Really, I've been a fan of words since I was very young, and always took great pleasure in interesting turns of phrase and sort of off beat idioms and things like that. I always like the way that different people can move through their lives and experience completely different things, and therefore formulate their thoughts and opinions and emotions in completely different worlds of language. And I always thought that was a fascinating thing. You could observe the same phenomenon, or you could share an experience with someone, and you would take home a completely separate and completely unique linguistic sort of framework of understanding what you went through. And people going through similar things will manage to express themselves in wholly unique ways using language. And I think that was something that always thrilled me when I was growing up. And it's music is one of the ways that you can experience that, or lyrics in music you can come across that a lot. You know, people phrase themselves in completely, wholly unique ways. So I've always been lyrically focused. But in terms of the inspiration for songs, it can be anything. You know, it can just be, as I say, it can be something that you observe when you're in the street, or something you eavesdrop, or something you hear someone saying on the bus, or it can be, you know, a phrase that sticks in your head from years ago that you remember. We all have those sort of things that you'll have very, very sharp memories of moments or vignettes in your life that you don't really know why you have such a sharp memory of that particular moment. You're sort of like, I don't know why that was so important, but something will, you know, something will stick around. And I'm a collector of these sort of things. I make lots of notes as I walk around my life. And when it comes to sitting down to write a song or feeling that burst of inspiration, I'll usually pore over notes that I've made and bring in sort of disparate images and symbols and phrases and try to make something entirely new out of them. But in terms of other lyricists, it really is just, as I say, it's just lyrics that speak to me. If I hear a thought in a song expressed that I've never heard in a song before, a completely original thought, or an interesting takeoff point for a lyric, I'm always, my ears are open to that. And I'm also sort of enamored and quite mesmerized by the idea that songs can elevate quite ordinary situations and put them on a sort of higher plateau or a higher plane. And when you think of people like, say Jarvis Cocker, you know, taking a very sort of run of the mill sort of traditional British domestic scene, say, and putting it on this sort of pedestal in the style of Scott Walker, the big balladeers and crooners. I'm really excited at that by that process, and I would say that I feel closest to a technique like that. I like to observe things and then bring them into the world of a song and see how they change the air around them.
I think, you know, and I think there's certain songs hit people in different ways, aren't there? You know, I remember the first time we saw yourself in the band live was in McCool's in Glasgow. So Heavy Elevator was out. We'd been playing it to bits, you know, loving it. And then you played a song not on the album, it's an earlier one, Catherine Opens a Window. And myself and my wife we just sort of looked at each other, we listened to it, and we're thinking it was just such a powerful song, and it really, you know, we're listening to it, and you were almost in tears, quite frankly, listening to the words of it, and it's that power of music, you know, the power of the words that come through, and you know, the ability to move people. I think it's just such a special thing to, you know, to possess. But you know, that song that night was just incredible for us, you know.
Oh well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm so glad to hear that. That's great. It's a song that's very important to me. Catherine Opens a Window. It's a deeply personal song, and it, you know, whenever I play it, I'm still struck by it. It feels like a lightning in a bottle song, because I do remember writing it, but I remember it being a very, very, you know, quick sort of on the back of a napkin kind of thing, you know, 15, 20 minutes of writing, and then Catherine Opens a Window sort of arrived fully formed. And I'm still sort of baffled and bewildered by that, because it's a song that I still feel so close to so many years after I wrote it. And it's a song that still comes up a lot, you know, and when I play it live, it seems to have a similar effect on a lot of rooms. And I'm also very interested in that, you know, I know what the song's about from my perspective. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier about releasing the songs unto the world and just having no real control over how they're going to sound or how people will relate to them. And that can be a relief, because it's almost as if the the ownership has been transferred, and you can sort of gift it to people and say, this is as much your song now as it is mine. And Catherine Opens a Window, as much as I know what I was writing about when I wrote it, it isn't necessarily crystal clear when you listen to the song. There's quite abstract lines in there, but I'm just, it's such a compliment when people respond to it in a really, on an emotional level. But it is really quite, well, not puzzling, not in a negative way. It's it's a mystery. It's a mystery, and it's exactly as you say. It's the power of music. It's there's no knowing how it will hit, but the fact that it does is, it's a great feeling for me.
And just going back to that tour, and Heavy Elevator was coming out, and I think you begin to get Airplane 6 Music, for example, and gigs are selling out. Was there a point where you thought, oh, things have changed here, this is really happening? Can you
Yes. Well, there were a few points, and I think everyone in the band has had that experience of, you think it's just one moment and you think, wow, something's really happening there. And then even, say it's on tour and one gig will feel particularly special. 2 days after that, another one might come and it just blows the roof off again. And you thought, oh, I thought that last one was the turning point. I thought that last one was the kind of pivot point where everything changed, and suddenly what you felt was maybe a new stage. Then, there's another change. And so it's certainly quite a few important moments happening. And but it's funny you were at McCool's, because that was a very, very special gig for us. And Glasgow crowds are notorious, famous, if not infamous, for their, well, just for their enthusiasm, essentially, and for how much they give to the performers. That was a really special gig for us. And then shortly after that, we sold out King Tut's, and that's the rite of passage, as many Scottish bands will know, UK bands will know. And so when we sold that out and had these sing-along crowds and things, it was it was just incredible. And we have been so fortunate to have had more than one of these special moments. And I think the trick for us now is to make sure that we sort of keep them in mind, because it's hard to recognize the power of them. Well, it's easy to recognize it in the moment, but it's difficult to sort of hold on to it in a way, or enjoy it fully in the moment, because it's just so dazzling at the time. And then because things move on, and because you have more tours and more gigs and more sessions and all kinds of things, you sort of forget. And so the trick for us is now to hold on to them as best we can. It's this past year and a half has changed my life, and I'm just along for the ride.
Oh, that's great. And of course, last week you played a festival. Normally festivals are in the summer. It's nice. But you're down at Rockaway Beach, Bognor Regis, and I vouch for the poor weather. How do you find playing festivals? Because the crowd's not necessarily your crowd, but I thought you came over absolutely fantastic, and the crowd were, to my mind, blown away with it. I mean, how do you find festivals, and particularly Rockaway Beach?
Well, yes, Rockaway Beach was an absolute dream. It was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that gig. It's not that I'm a sort of ball of stress or nerves prior to a gig, but I do. When you're about to step onto a stage in front of a fair few hundred people, there's obviously a bit of a lump in your throat. And I was just in such a great mood all day, and I'd been looking forward to Rockaway Beach for a long time, and we were treated so well by everyone, all of the representatives at the festival, all of the staff. we were treated so well. So it was a nice sort of soft landing when we arrived, and then the gig just it just exceeded every expectation I had. It was a really lively, engaged crowd, and also a crowd of some size, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I think from our perspective, I think we played well. And in festivals generally, it's funny, there's certainly a difference between headline shows, support slots, and festival shows. So headline shows are obviously and it's something we're still getting used to, having numbers of people buying tickets and coming specifically to see you. We're getting used to that, and that's it's an amazing feeling when you get the crowd singing along, or really feeling like you're one with the crowd, and there's something going on there. Support slots can be equally as fun and equally as rewarding, but there's maybe more apprehension beforehand because you know that you're not playing to your crowd, and there's maybe more of a tussle with the audience, a sort of trying to convince them by the end of your half an hour slot that they really enjoyed it. And so it's there's that. But with festivals, it's a sort of odd in between, because people are there to see music. They're there to see live bands, and they don't, some of the people in the crowd will be there who've never seen you before, but they've come along to see it for the first time. Others will be sort of old faithful fans who have been to see you more than once, and others will be neither. They just happen to be in the room. And so it's you don't quite know where you are with festivals in a way, but that's what makes them so full of potential in a way, and can be full of quite explosive energy. And Bognor Regis was certainly the perfect example of that. And it's one of my favorite gigs in recent memory. It was really, really great.
Yeah, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. And just even reading some of the social comments on Facebook and the Rockaway page, and people just absolutely blown away, didn't know this band, and just bought the upcoming tour and all this sort of stuff. And I guess talking about the upcoming tour, you'll be hard at work in rehearsals, are you, with the band at the moment?
Yeah, we're just we're getting ready. Yeah.
What's on the tour rider, or what will be
on the rider? Oh, that's a good question. Ours is it's a very modest rider, I must admit. Touring is a thrill, and I'm incredibly fortunate and feel very privileged to have, to be able to travel and perform like that. It's such a how's the best way to put it? It's such a unique experience. Not many people get to do that, and so I'm very acutely aware of that whenever we tour. But I'm also aware that after having toured a fair bit now, and sort of have learned the ropes, as it were, it can take its toll on you. It's quite demanding. There's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of either driving or sitting in the back of a van. There's a lot of downtime followed by quite intense sort of strenuous sort of movement. It takes a lot of getting used to the fast and the slow, and the ups and the downs and the ebbs and the flows. It can take a lot out of it, and you almost certainly get ill by the end of it. But so our rider is quite polite. It's we're happy with a few beers, of course, but on the whole, it's things like it's fruit and nuts and things that snacky things. There isn't we're not having lobster thermidor and kind of all that. It's not that, and it's not. We don't make demands of the blue or brown M&Ms or anything like that. We don't play tricks yet. We haven't done that yet. But very modest rider, and it's certainly not a rock and roll rider. So I do apologize in advance.
Not at all. We sound very grounded with that. And of course, being an Edinburgh man, you'll be heading down to Leith in a few months to support the Proclaimers. I mean, that must be pretty amazing to be.
I'm trying not to think too much about that one because I've still not quite crash landed after the news. Yeah, that's gonna be something. You know, being from Edinburgh and being asked to support the Proclaimers it's a pinch me moment, and especially on Leith Links as well. I don't know when there will have ever been a crowd on Leith Links in any way comparable to the size of what that crowd will be. It will be amazing, and we're really really excited about it, and we're so grateful to the Proclaimers for having us. But it really, I can't make light of it. It feels like a very very special moment for us. The Proclaimers are as close to being an iconic Scottish band as there is, and then for many people they are the Scottish band. So to be along for that is just such a pleasure. And but as I say, I can't think too much about it just yet, you know, because I think I'll save it for the week prior where I'll be completely losing it.
Oh, definitely,
it'd be great.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. My wife's from Edinburgh as well, and you know,
right.
We've got tickets already, and then we saw you supporting, so one to look forward to. So I'll work my way down the front and see how nervous looking you are, but I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Probably another couple of questions, but the album title, coming back to the album, Angel Numbers. What's the story behind that, and also the cover? Because I noticed you're on the cover, but your face is blurred out. So, can you tell us a little about that?
Yes. So, the idea behind Angel Numbers as a title actually the idea was given to me by an old flatmate of mine, who introduced me to the concept of angel numbers, which I think I'd maybe come across in the past, but it was sort of lodged in some dark corner of my brain. I couldn't recall it at the time. But if you don't know, angel numbers are it's the idea that as you walk around, as you live your life, you will run into certain numbers more frequently than you do others. And I suppose the best examples of those are something like lucky number 13 or unlucky number 13, or 1111 on a digital clock, something like that, or, you know, the Trinity or whatever it might be. And the idea is, and it's a sort of, for those who are more mystically minded than myself, let's call it slightly more new age. It's the idea that certain numbers will tell you whether or not you are moving in the right direction, whether or not you are on the right path, or whether you should make an about turn sometime soon. And so it's angel numbers are tied to the idea of your destiny and to the future and how it could and will unfold. And so I was introduced to this idea of angel numbers and found it to be the sort of perfect unifying idea behind a few songs that I was already writing. And that happened with Heavy Elevator as well. Sort of a few songs into writing, you'll maybe land on the album title, which starts making sense of what the songs that came before it, and start being quite it sort of guides the songs that you'll write in the future. So that's what happened with Heavy Elevator, and the same happened with Angel Numbers. All of the songs, I would say the common thread between them all is that they each look at the idea of, you know, the future as potential, of ambition, of success, of just looking into the future and you know, seeing what's going to come. And angel numbers, so it deals a lot with success and ambition and the future, where Heavy Elevator was more looking at the past. But it's also the title has another meaning in that it also deals in the idea of sort of guardian angels, or people that come into your life and have a certain effect, a great and terrible or wonderful effect, and they might be in your life for days or weeks or years on end, or they might just be brief encounters. And I like the idea of recognizing those people in this album as well. So it's a collection. It's a collection of songs about angel numbers, about fate, and about destiny. But it's also a collection of angel numbers. So it's songs about angels.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that was the idea behind it. And the album cover, I was it was a portrait taken by an Edinburgh-based photographer called Emanuele Centi, who has a wonderful eye, I think, just lovely photographs. Fell in love with his stuff as soon as I saw it, so I'm really happy to involve him. And I felt that the album had a number of faces, whereas I think Heavy Elevator had quite a, it was a statement of intent, so it fitted well that it was a portrait of me. And Angel Numbers is a slightly more mystical record, slightly more mysterious record, and slightly softer focus record. So I thought the blurred portrait on the front was fitting for that as well.
Okay. So I think we're just about out of time, but I've got one very brief last question.
I'll be quick.
So, thinking back to all the gigs that you've attended, which one stands out the most?
As an audience member?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a few, but I'll go with when I saw the White Stripes at what was the Carling Academy, but the O2 Academy in Glasgow. It's the kind of gig that hit me like a train, and it was about 2.5 hours long, and I barely have a recollection of the songs played because I lost myself so completely in the experience. It was deafeningly loud and so sort of impassioned, and I just it was a one-off. I've never seen a gig anything like it, and I've seen quite a number of gigs and have had wonderful times at a lot of them. It was a complete one-off. It totally changed my idea of what a stage does and what a stage is and what a live performance can be. It was completely, it was inspiring, no end. And yeah, so I would have to say that the White Stripes at the O2 Academy in Glasgow.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hamish.